best career and the most capped female player for Australia. Hall of Fame number 132, Tahnee Norris.
Wow, what a moving moment that was, and what a proud moment for Everything Rugby League as a podcast to be able to welcome a Hall of Fame inductee. Tahnee Norris, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
All good, anytime. You're definitely our first and probably only Hall of Famer. Stuart's with me, as always, Stuart McClellan. How are you going, Stu? How are you keeping?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, lovely day here down in Canberra, a bit of wind about, but otherwise good.
Yesterday was so windy here in Sydney and hot, 28 degrees, bushfire weather. But anyway, I'm sure our listeners don't want to hear too much about the weather. So, without ado, why don't you get us started with this fascinating interview, Stu?
Yes. Firstly, Tahnee, thanks for agreeing to have a chat with us. And congratulations on your recent induction to the Rugby League Hall of Fame. What does it mean for you and your five fellow inductees to be recognised like that?
Yeah, it was one of those moments where I was completely blown away by, and the rest of the girls have done, felt exactly the same way. Never did we think in our careers or even ever that a female would be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So it was a really surreal moment, a humbling moment at the same time, and a really special moment, to have the dinner down in Sydney at the SCG and to be amongst the crowd that we were amongst. It was just, really, really blew me away. It was a really special moment.
Yeah, I as just an ardent fan of the game, I think it was such a great event. It was, commemorations, all sort of congratulations to anyone who put that on. It was moving, it was emotional. And I'm sure for you being a player, it would have been, one of the moments of your career, really, if not the moment, although you've had a fair few of those, which brings us to my next question. If we can rewind a little bit and tell us a bit about yourself and how you came to be involved in rugby league.
Yeah, well, I couldn't play as a kid. We weren't allowed to play after 12 years of age in any sort of football context. So I went to another sport. I played a lot of netball growing up and a little bit of cricket as well. So just because I couldn't play rugby league, my younger brother played and used to play out in the backyard and then go inside and watch it on TV and want to be like the heroes that we had in the room the other night at the Hall of Fame. But it was something that I always wanted to do. I loved football. I loved watching football. I loved playing out in the backyard with my two brothers. But when I moved to Sydney, I got an opportunity to play. One of the girls I was working with said, come and play a game of rugby league. And I just said, well, I didn't even think there was a competition. And she said, yeah, there's a Sydney-based competition. And yeah, had my first game with the South Sydney Rabbitohs and didn't look back after that. Gave away netball pretty much straight away. And just absolutely loved playing rugby league and just grew from there. It was exciting times. It was something that the Sydney competition was actually quite strong back in the day, and thoroughly enjoyed the initial start into rugby league and then grew from that initial start with the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Out of curiosity, what position were you in netball?
I was a defender, yes.
I thought so.
Quite aggressive.
The contact.
Yeah. An aggressive goal defence. So, I still love netball now. I think I grew up playing it and I loved, the professionalism of what netball stands for now and the athleticism of those girls. And we have a lot of girls from netball actually come and play rugby league, which is exciting. There's so many different skill sets that are transferable through to rugby league.
Just as an aside, did you have a footy team that you supported growing up?
Look, I go for the Roosters now, but when I was younger, it was Bulldogs, actually. I went for the Canterbury Bulldogs, who are going all right at the moment. So
yeah, they are. Yeah, they're having a resurgence. Yeah. How difficult was it to be a female playing the game in those days when you started, and what sort of prejudice did you experience?
Yeah, look, we copped a lot back in the day. Obviously it was really difficult. All we wanted to do was play footy, and it just wasn't recognised from governing bodies, or they didn't want a bar of it back in the day. So you'd have to fight for not only to get uniforms and little things like that, but access to training fields, even games, referees, simple things like getting the anthem played at the start of a test match. One of our girls used to sing it, so because they wouldn't put it on for us. So little things like that, and paying for your shorts and socks when you're at a World Cup, and everything else that went with it was it was hard. But again, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think we went through so many big struggles back in the day, and I think the work that was done from so many of the people, and one of them, Veronica Wright, who was inducted the other night, she's one of those that worked behind the scenes, because we were still playing, and some of those girls were on committees at the same time. So, it was interesting trying to fight the battles, the political battles happening behind the scenes, to try and put us out there and to get the respect and the recognition that we thought we deserved.
Yeah, I always thought, I have absolutely no time for these idiots that say that the men's game shouldn't be subsidizing the women's game. They have no understanding of how an actual business works. Bit of a sidetrack here for any listeners, and I apologize for this, but you look at a company like Amazon. Amazon weren't profitable for up until probably 3 years ago. The only profitable product that they had was Amazon Web Services, and they used the profits from that to partially subsidize new products, with the concept that that new product will become profitable on its own. So the game is the game. Man, woman, whatever you want to identify as, we all subsidize each other at different times. So anyone out there that thinks, the men shouldn't be subsidizing the women shouldn't be subsidizing the girls, boys, etc., you need to understand business a hell of a lot better. That's how you create multiple profitable products in the long run. But my rant is over in that regard. But strangely, my next question, more than 30% of our listeners are actually located in New Zealand. I personally suspect that's due to my bias towards the Warriors, but do you know much about the development of women's rugby league from a New Zealand point of view?
No, not a great deal. I mean, it's good to see that they're actually being included back into the NRLW for next year, and I think that'll help with the growth in the women's game over there. I think, rugby in New Zealand is obviously really still strong for the women, with 15s and 7-a-side, but you can see now that a lot of those girls are now jumping ship and coming over to rugby league now. So there's a number of those girls are actually in the NRLW this season, which is really exciting. But I think, with the Warriors coming back in, you'll see a big growth spurt in the pathway system for New Zealand over there. And they'll recognise the fact that they can actually achieve those goals to get to NRLW, don't have to move to Australia for that. So I think that'll make a really big difference.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think that, the Warriors coming in will make a huge difference, because we have an opportunity as a game to, I guess looking back, one of the only downsides of the magnificent product that is State of Origin is that it seemed to coincide with the decline in international rugby league. So if we can bring New Zealand up at the same time as Australia, and somehow embrace that international competition in the best possible way, and still have super strong three-game series for State of Origin, that would be an ideal situation. But Stu, on to the next question, my friend.
Yeah, look, I feel I have to bring us back to home soil, Tahnee, back in Australia. You hold the record for the most number of tests for Australia with 32 and 7 as captain. Take us back to your first international in 1998 and just how it felt to represent your country.
Yeah, look, it's a special moment anytime you throw on the Australian jersey, and I think it was one of those occasions where the jersey was probably about three times the size of what it was. It was these really big, thick jumpers that you got back in the day, and it was over in Fiji, so we had a test match over there, and we're playing on a ground that had a lot of water on it. It was pretty muddy occasion, but it didn't take away from how special it was to play in that first test match over there and throw on the green and gold. And that was one of the occasions where one of the girls sung the anthem before we actually took the pitch. But yeah, it doesn't take away every single time I represented Australia. It had that special feeling. It was, grabbing your teammates arm in arm and singing the national anthem was always truly special, and it still is now. Just even watching the Olympics just recently and seeing them up on the podium and singing the anthem is a really, it's a huge occasion, and it's a special occasion, and not one a lot of people get to do. So yeah, every single one of them was really special.
Yeah, I can only imagine. We've already touched on this very sort of briefly, but can you talk to the monetary struggles early on and even now? Did you have to raise money to travel and play and provide, etc.?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I think it was literally only the last year of my playing career, and that was like 15 years of playing. When we went to that last World Cup in 2013, that we actually got some money and we didn't have to pay for the trip to go away. So every other occasion, girls were taking out loans. I maxed out credit cards. Some of the girls even had to resign from their jobs because they couldn't get time off work for that first World Cup in 2000 over in England. And, it's not only that, it was the medical side of it. We never used to travel with even a physio, let alone a doctor back in the day. We just relied on sports trainers or even strapping ourselves up. If someone knew how to strap an ankle, happy days, and then you'd have to bring your own tape and do all that. But the medical side of it, the coverage just wasn't there. So, it was one of those things where you just had to, if you wanted to stay on the park, and that was something that I really wanted to do, was have a good career in rugby league, you had to go and source out physios, doctors. I was lucky enough, I was working at the Australian Institute of Sport for my actual job, that I could actually tap into some really good resources to help me out with my training programs and get access to some really good medical staff as well that I could utilize along my journey. So, I was pretty fortunate with that, but there's majority of the girls didn't have that. They were just sourcing out what they could to keep themselves on the footy park.
That sounds eerily similar to the whole reason why rugby league was created as a breakaway in 1895. I mean, you had the Northern Union, which were generally speaking pretty poor of money, and they were getting injured and they needed to be paid in order to skip work, etc. So then, they formed their own league, and we call it rugby league today. So it's eerily similar with the crossover there. But
I think it is a pretty similar journey to what the men have gone through, and that's not lost on us. It's even, really similar for our origin story as well with the men's space. So, it's a pretty similar journey. It just happens to be in the era that I played in.
Interesting that you brought that up, Keith. It's the birthday of rugby league today, 29th of August.
Is it really?
Yeah, so 129 years. So, very interesting. Tahnee, you talked about some of what were probably the lowlights with the financial side of things. What are some of the highlights of your playing career?
Oh, look, there's so many stories, and I think I probably couldn't share a lot of them because of the stuff that's, it goes on Facebook now, so everyone knows. But, there was so many cool moments. Every time I went away with a team, I enjoyed it. Like, I think it's one of those things, that's what footy gives you. There's your teammates and your memories and the camaraderie that you get from that. So, but at any time I played in the Queensland jersey or the Australian jersey were really special for me. I think, going away with your team, the hardships that we had, but we still had a really good culture within our Jillaroos crew, especially. We just wanted to play for each other, and New Zealand was so strong for such a long time. So to finally get that World Cup win in 2013 and to see the changes from that, like there was some massive changes after the 2013 World Cup that has put it on its journey to where it is today. And that's all come from conversations that have happened behind the scenes. And I'm not sure if you know the story, but I was sitting with David Smith, who was the NRL CEO at the time, in the crowd, and we were watching to see who were going to play in the final. So England and New Zealand were playing in the semi-final, and just happened to be sitting next to David Smith, and he said, "Oh, this is such a good game. It's such a good spectacle. It really should be on TV." And just turned around and said to him, "Mate, you're the one that's got the power to put it on and put it out there." And he said, "Well, you go and play the world, win the World Cup, and we'll see what we can do." And it literally, everything just changed from there. Like, we got back to Australia, we were in the Prime Minister's lounge getting photos with the then PM Johnny Howard, and we were shown out on the field at halftime, paraded around with all the video footage that went with that, and it was just, everything changed. The respect started to change in the background, and then the NRLW actually happened not long after that. So, yeah, it was a pretty defining moment for us. I think the change from winning that World Cup to where it is now, and sure, it was a gradual process, but you could really see the steps that we kept taking, and the behind the scenes, the people were starting to regard us and respect us, and that started to change and really change the women's game altogether.
Yeah, was that the year that you finished up in 2013?
Yeah, look, I thought I was going to stop playing in 2013, and then I came back from the World Cup, and then I thought I'll just play this All-Stars game, and was going to play out another couple of years. Played that All-Stars game, went, no, I'm done. I just knew I needed to retire after that. My body had had enough by that stage. So, and then my mind had finally caught up with me. So, I ended it in 2014.
This one's an interesting one for me, Tahnee, having done some coaching myself and particularly with women's teams. But what got you into coaching, and was it hard to be accepted as a female coach?
Still is, mate. Still is. Look, what got me into coaching? I've always coached in some way, shape, or form. Like I've always been involved in high performance sport, and even in my netball days, I was playing at a high level representative, and I'd come back to my country town that I was living in, and I'd coach the girls what I'd learnt from that weekend in rep training. So I've always done some sort of coaching. I've always wanted to help people out and hopefully get them better. So when I finished playing, got involved with the Jillaroos pretty much straight away. I was coaching with Steve Folkes with the Jillaroos, and I actually thought I was going to go down the S&C route, but it turned out that I did want to coach and started coaching with Folkesy, and then with the Burleigh Bears pretty much straight away. So I'd retired from playing, and then they asked me to coach the Burleigh Bears pretty much in that first year. So went into it. It was a baptism of fire, that's for sure, from straight away retiring into a head coach role. But absolutely loved it. And it's been a journey all the way through. You're always learning when you're coaching. It's one of those things that nothing's ever the same. Your feedback you give to one player is completely different to, what you do with another player or the teams, etc. So it's been a real journey for me, and I'm still learning heaps and absolutely loving what I do at the moment. I think I'm one of only 3 female coaches full time in the game, which is in the head coach roles as well. So that part itself, just shows that there's still a lot of growth to be done in the coaching side of it for females. There's a lot of female coaches out there. Most of them are only sitting in assistant coach roles at the moment. So there's still a lot of growth to be done in the female coaching space. I think that over the next couple of years, hopefully we see a few more of us in those full-time head coach roles.
You think we'll ever see a female coach coaching an NRL team?
Oh, look, I've been asked that a lot, whether you'd step into the men's space. I think for me, I have coached men and women in cricket, so it's, something that wouldn't bother me to coach in the men's space. I think it's just a learning curve to step back into that. And, if you're wanting to coach men, I think someone's got to have a leap of faith to bring you into the men's space, I think would probably be the biggest thing, and have that respect and support around you as well to make sure that, if it does happen, then you're fully supported in that environment. But again, as a coach, you've got to gain that respect from your playing group too. So it doesn't matter whether they're male or female. But, for me, it's not something that I'd be looking at, in the near future. I've obviously got the Origin gig at the moment. So would I say no to it? Probably not. But at the moment, I'm comfortable where I am. But if I want to get outside that comfort zone, that's probably where, you put your hand up and have a go at that too.
Yeah. I could be wrong here, as I often am, but I believe you're actually from New South Wales.
Yes, we are.
So as a Queensland head coach, does it make you feel like you're coaching the enemy?
Oh, look, it's a funny one, isn't it? Like I said, with the men's journey, it's a similar story with the women's space as well. So I'm born and bred in Orange in New South Wales, so from cold country, and grew up obviously supporting the men and in the New South Wales space, and then moved to Queensland, and we played state of residence at that stage, not state of origin. And so I played 2 years for New South Wales, and then I moved to Queensland, and I played the majority of my time with Queensland. So yes, I consider myself a Queenslander now. So, it's one of those, it was tough initially because I, obviously supported the men in that space for such a long period of time, but understanding where Queensland have come from, the story behind it, Choppy Close came out and gave us our jerseys one year. And after he presented that jersey, I fully got the passion behind, why Queensland is so well supported and how much it means to Queenslanders with the state of origin. So didn't take me long to actually work it out and be able to, wanting to run through brick walls for Choppy after that, because it was, that was probably a defining moment in my playing career that I knew that, Queensland was for me, that's for sure.
You don't bring out that, excuse me, that line, New South Wales don't get Origin, do you, Tahnee?
Oh, maybe sometimes behind closed doors. I wouldn't say it to Madge. I wouldn't say it to Madge right now, but you know.
There's a belief that every year the NRLW and Origin standard gets better with the increased professionalism. Is that what you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I was literally watching a schoolgirls game online this morning, and even the standard of that has just gone next level. I think, you know, we're seeing our first generation of players that can play all the way through, and you know, they get to play 5 more years of footy. They don't have to stop at 12. They're playing all the way through. So their exposure to the game, their game management, their understanding of the rules, and their skill sets are so strong. So even our group of 17-year-olds that played this year in Queensland, wow, they were next level skill set. They were probably better than our 19s, some of them. So, you know, that's exciting. And that's what you're seeing, I think, filter through now to the NRLW and obviously with Origin as well. I think skill sets are getting better and better. The girls got more time to train so they can practice for these things. I don't know whether you saw Julia Robinson last week for the Broncos. Yeah. Doing the Superman try, and you know, it's something we practiced in the Origin space where we had the diving mats out there and she could actually do that and train for that. And that's not something we've done in the past. So I think, you know, the more we train and the more professional it becomes, you're going to see that, like you're going to see more and more of it. And you only saw it with, you know, the Broncos over the last 2 weekends with Stacey Walker that's done the transfer over from rugby sevens. Has been training in a full-time environment, and she's taking these kicks from Ali Brigginshaw that we haven't seen most girls actually take. So, and again, just been training full-time to be able to do that and have the skill set and the backing to do that. So I think you'll see over the next couple of years, it's just going to go from strength to strength because the girls get to train more and practice their skills.
I totally agree with you about the skill sets. I'm doing a bit of coaching with the RISE program here in Canberra with under 13 girls, and they just blow me away with their passing, their ability to find space, all that sort of stuff that, you know, 13-year-old girls, you just don't expect it, but they've got it, and you think, wow, when they get to 19, 20, what are they going to be like?
Yeah, how good are they going to be? Yeah, It's exciting. It's a really exciting space to be in at the moment, you know, that growth area for our sport for sure.
Yeah, just sticking with the State of Origin side of things, as a New South Wales supporter myself, I thought we were home and hosed after that first match in Brisbane this year. How did you guys manage to turn the tables on the second and third matches?
Well, Loz Brown can boot a ball, right? But no, I think, you know, in the first match, it was about 15-minute block there where we just let Rachel Pearson do a little bit too much and the damage done by Jamie Chapman on that edge. And it's something that we tried to claw back in the second half. We came close. You know, Emma Manselman got over the line, dropped the ball over the line. I won't say that Millie Elliott was well and truly offside, but didn't get penalised for it. But, you know, we were close to actually, you know, in that second half to bringing it back. And I think we knew we had the players in this group. It was just about belief and following the game plan that we wanted to follow. And, you know, they did that in game 2, although it was closer with the wet weather and, you know, it was a real battle in game 2. You could see the change in the girls game 2 and then well and truly ticked all the boxes with the game model that we put out there for game 3 to show the dominance in that game. And I think, you know, they got a fantastic group of girls. You know, they just believe in each other and they fight for each other. And they knew they were disappointed in game 1 in how they let the game get away in that first 20 minutes. And they knew they could play way better than what they showed in that game 1. And they came out and did that in game 2 and game 3. And like I said, thank God Loz Brown can kick a field goal. So it just kept us in the game there. So it was a pretty special moment to see that happen. It was unbelievable in those conditions. There was that much water on the ground, and to receive the pass that she did from Meeks is probably thrown, you know, but way better passes than that. But, you know, caught it at her feet and had defenders coming up over the top, and she potted it over. So, yeah, it was a pretty special moment, that one.
Are you happy with the 3-match series that was introduced this year, Tahnee?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, it's still a changing period for our sport. You know, even for next year's State of Origin, we've got to redo the whole schedule and program again because we're still not at that point where the NRLW precedes it. So we were lucky in Queensland. We still had the B&D Premiership this year that the girls can play some really good footy, and I think that was a defining moment for us because the girls had really good fitness levels when it came to game 2 and game 3. You could see at the back end of the games how well we were going. So I think that was really good for us. But, that's a change again for next year. We've both New South Wales and Queensland will push their competitions to the back end of the season. So we've now got to come off the back of half of our squad going to Vegas and then try and put a program together to get them ready for game 1 without the help of any sort of competition, whether it be the BMD Premiership or NRLW. So it's something that, we're working with the NRL now to say, well, what is the best scenario to make sure we put the best product out there? Like we can't go into a game, and it is the toughest game that these girls play in, and be underdone. So it's not fair on the girls, and it's not fair on the fans either. So I think it's a pretty big move for that we're, pushing the B&D Premiership back. So we'll see how we go. But we just want to make sure the girls are fully prepared so that they put, the best foot forward out there to play really good footy in game 1 for sure.
Yeah, I agree. We've sort of touched on this already, but I'll ask the question anyway. The NRLW and Origin series are becoming better supported and more popular each year. Do you think that the momentum will continue, or are there any risks to the momentum declining?
Yeah, I think going too big too soon was obviously something that's been on the cards before, but we go to another 2 teams next year, and I think talent depth wise, we're probably ready for just the 2 teams. I think if we expanded any more than that, it would have been a little bit too much. So the next step now is to try and get it to that full season is the biggest thing. Like it's you're seeing the increase in the crowds, and there's some definite pocket areas for supporter bases. Like the Knights are massive, with their backing of their team down there, and Cowboys up here. There's pockets of really good fan bases in a couple of those really good areas. But I think what we now got to get it to is where the girls are playing more games, so the season gets expanded out. And then look in a couple of years' time to adding a couple of extra teams in there so that the talent base doesn't get weakened if we go too early. So I think it's more games would be the ideal scenario for now, and then really keep pushing it with the media and the fan side of it to grow that fan base. But the fan base is there. Like it's a different fan base, I think, is I think Ali's talked about it at Origin before. It's a cheaper ticket that they pay for at Origin for women's Origin. But you've got a different fan base. So it's completely different to the men's space. So I think, to keep it at that cheaper ticket, get the families there, and they're full supporters of women's rugby league. They want to go and watch it. And I think that showed this year with what we got, even in the wet conditions in Newcastle, we still had a sellout crowd. So they just wanted to go to that. And I think that's the important part too, is to select the right areas to go to play these big games. Like, Newcastle's huge supporter base. New South Wales or Queensland, doesn't really matter. They'll turn out. Townsville was another indication. I think Canberra would be a really good one as well. Central Coast, like all the regional areas too that get behind it. And, I think that keeps the crowd numbers up there, and then start building in places like Sydney. I thought we got a really good crowd at Suncorp for the first time ever. So, it's only going to grow from there, I think, and just the media behind it to support it to make sure that we get those big numbers that we need.
Fascinating. I agree.
I know the answer to this question, Tahnee, but I want to ask you to see what you say. Does sexism still exist within the sport?
Oh, look, I think it's got better. Like it's definitely got better. There's times where a couple of years ago, when I first took on the Origin role, I had some really interesting times in the lift with a couple of different families, and, does it still exist? Oh, look, I think there are pockets of it, but I think it's got so much better than what I've ever dealt with in the past. And that only showed at the Hall of Fame dinner. Like that blew me away to like I said before, about being recognised and respected in the women's space, and to be able to be in the men's space at the same time and have that same recognition and respect, I think is the biggest change in our sport. It's definitely the biggest change. I know, watching a NRLW grand final a couple of years ago when I was a spectator, I went as a spectator, and coming back from the game, and it was a really good game up at Redcliffe. Fantastic, fantastic crowd, fantastic game, and walking behind these 3 generations of one family, and it was the son, the father, and the grandfather. And they weren't talking about anyone that they knew in the game. They weren't related to anyone. They just went to watch as a fan. Like, they went to watch a really good game of football, and that's exactly what they got. So irrelevant whether it was men's or women's, they just wanted to watch some really good footy. And I think that's what it's all about now. Is it's irrelevant whether there's a W next to it. It's it's just really good quality football, and that's what we're putting out there, and it's getting the respect and the recognition it deserves.
I love that answer. Just the product, the quality, the talent will speak for itself, and that's what people that will overcome most things, in my opinion. So, a fantastic answer. But moving on to a different area here, one that I'm particularly fascinated with. You recently visited Papua New Guinea to assist with the development of rugby league there. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, look, there's Pacific Oz Sports Program is a funded program by the government that the QRL assist the Papua New Guinea Rugby League in all education facets over there to try and grow the sport and help them out. And it was an opportunity for me to jump on board with that and go over to be a part of what is their new women's competition over there, so the Santos Cup. So it started a year ahead of schedule, which is really exciting. And it just reminds me of where we've come from to now be involved in it. So it's a 16 competition that they've developed for the women, and it now gives them an opportunity to play week in, week out football, which is really exciting. So, opportunity to go over there, ran some training sessions with the girls, but mostly around the coach education side of it, to develop their coaching, and off the back of, the PNG bid for, next team in for the NRL, then it's obviously a big thing for them to develop their pathways, and to be part of that, it's actually really quite exciting for the women's space. And and we'll get to do some more over there as well, going over for the finals to touch base with them again, and then hopefully sort out some stuff with some coach education in 2025. So it's exciting times for them to develop their female space. They're so passionate about rugby league over there. It's insane to walk around PNG and people know exactly who you are. Like, it just blows me away to have that happen. But they just absolutely love football, and they want to learn and get better. So that part about it as well is a really nice space to be in, to go over and help them and hopefully grow their sport. And they're already tough enough and competitive enough that imagine in a few years' time with some really good coaching and some really good development and some regular games as well, how good those PNG Orchids are going to be, hopefully at a World Cup level as well.
I agree.
You mentioned in your answer that the NRL bid. How do you think a PNG team will go in the NRL?
Yeah, I think knowing the passion behind it and being their number one sport over there, they'll do everything they can. They no doubt about them, they'll be competitive. But there's obviously a lot of logistics that are involved in that, and that's something that they obviously needs to consider with the bid process. But they're doing everything they can to actually make sure that they've got all the pathways in place over there to support the bid. It's not just a put a team in there and hope for the best. They put a lot of work in behind the scenes to grow an academy program over there, and then that feeds into what they've got with PNG Rugby League, with their competitions that they've got in place already. And we already see the Hunters in the Queensland Cup competition, which is and they're in the finals, so they're competitive as well. And then we just saw Jason Demetrio get appointed as a Pummels coach too. So it's exciting times for PNG at the moment, and I think they want it more than anything. They're excited about it. There's a lot of talk about it over there when you're in PNG. So I think it's a good place for the sport to be in, and I think culturally for the whole PNG, I think it's a really, really important piece for them as well.
Yeah, I was saying to Tahnee before we started recording, this is obviously for the listeners' benefit here, that I think they should almost give away tickets to each NRL game. Similar philosophy to what the Warriors do, in the fact that you can get $10 tickets and then just pack out the stadium every week. And I also think the stadium needs to be expanded, because you can't really have basically a replica of KO Stadium only holding 15,000 in a country that the UN estimates to have up to 17 million people. the majority of which love rugby league. I reckon if you price the tickets accordingly and derive your money just from the NRL head office grants and the Australian government grants, gate taking shouldn't factor into, the profitability of the club. It already goes straight to the top of the most profitable clubs due to the grants anyway. So I'd love to see at least 20,000 packing it out every single home game. But we're down to our final two questions, actually. Jesus, it's gone fast. Do you have any good
Too
stories?
fast, though. Is that what it is?
No, not at all. It's just it's been an absolutely cracking yarn. I've been just sort of listening to every word. It's such good content here. Do you have any good stories from your time in the game, though? This is putting you on the spot a bit.
These are these ones where everything goes on Facebook now. So, we were lucky that nothing was recorded.
Just tell us the worst one that'll criminate.
No, I can't. There's a really good Samoa trip in there that I won't share, but Graham Murray, that was his probably last trip, that one. But look, there's so many stories. Like, I think it's hard to think of one off the bat, but probably one that stands out is when we're in, because there was no HIA back in the day, obviously, we all know about that. But one of the girls was coming back from an injury before we played our first test match in Fiji, and we were at one of the grounds and she was doing the fitness test to get ready to play, and she passed the fitness test and then was standing under the goalpost and the goalpost collapsed on her. So she ended up with a head injury anyway and missed the game. So so that's, it was just one of the crappy old grounds that we were training on, literally. And the middle part of the goalpost just literally fell on her head and wiped her out for the game anyway. So, but there was so many stories. Like, we sat there in front of Bunnings selling raffle tickets, and Jeff Thompson came along one time and he's like, "What are you guys selling tickets for?" And we're, the Australian Women's Rugby League team going to a World Cup. And he goes, "What do you mean an Australian team is like having to sell tickets to go to a World Cup?" And he just couldn't believe it. So he ended up buying a whole box, like a whole roll of tickets. But it's just stuff like that. And, Gordon Tallis came to present our jerseys one year, and we didn't have the coat of arms on our Australian jersey, and when he picked it up to present our jerseys, and he actually was really teary about it. He got really emotional and couldn't believe that we weren't wearing the coat of arms on our jersey. And what's actually happened since that is that one of the girls developed the team song from that. Like, then it talks about the emu in the roo, 9 backwards step where side by side will never let you through. So it actually is part of our history that's now become our team song for the Jillaroos, which is pretty cool as well. So, and I think that's what, even though there's been some pretty crappy times where, like I said, money-wise, had to pay for everything, no recognition, support, that sort of stuff, but it's made for some really cool stories and a really big journey that what is now the Jillaroos and Women's Rugby League in general is like, there's all the history behind it that we talk about now to the girls that doesn't get lost on them. We've got so many stories for even the Maroons. This year I did up a jersey for them. So 20 years ago when we were playing for Queensland, it was back then at the ANZ Stadium, or it is now Cusack, and that's where the Broncos used to play. And we were the first game on. There was no one there. The gates were still blocked. Our families couldn't even get in for the national anthem. And 10 minutes in, then they finally come into the field. But that year, the QRL hadn't given us any jerseys. Like, they forgot all about us and they didn't give us Queensland jerseys. So we had to borrow our jersey off the Burleigh Bears, because that was the closest one with Maroons on it. And so we did a replica jersey up of that jersey from 20 years ago, and the girls wore it for the captain's run this year. And I was able to talk to the girls and tell them all about the history of the jersey. And that was pretty swift to be able to do that, even though it was, again, back in the day we were fuming because we couldn't even get a jersey. But now it's made for some really cool history that the girls really understand, and it's not lost on them, that's for sure.
Makes you realize just how far the game has come in the women's realm, thanks to the trailblazers like yourself and Karen Murphy and all the inductees, all the other sort of 3 or 4 inductees from the other night. So very, very interesting. Stu, final question?
Yeah, final question. I mean, these are really interesting stories, and the past really does need to be recorded, I believe. But what does the future look like for yourself in Women's Rugby League?
Oh, geez. Future, obviously, 2025, got the Origin gig again, and hopefully, really good series for next year, and that the planning behind that's obviously pretty huge. But to get it to a point where want to see full-time rugby league players would be, really, that's where it needs to go. Like all year round, girls are contracted for multi-years. They're playing some really good footy and the standard of the game increases. But for me personally, obviously I love coaching, so I still want to be involved coaching somewhere, but NRLW would be probably the next step, after Origin to step into that space and stay as a full-time coach what's I obviously want to do, and and to keep growing the game not only on the field but off the field as well. I think is really important to get our game out there, and you can see it's happening now anyway, but like to just continue to see the growth in the women's game and to leave a bit of a legacy on that is hopefully what I can do over the next few years as well.
Yeah, and that seems like an absolutely perfect place to leave it. Thank you so much for joining the Everleague Rugby League podcast, Tahnee. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
No worries. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
No, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Everything Rugby League. If you like this episode, give the show a follow and leave a review. For more news and insights, follow us on Facebook or head to everythingrugbyleague.com.